Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 106, Crude. Shen Zequan was unable to bring 2 million this trip, but he brought sincerity. Lei Changming looked at those few chests of silvers. They were all genuine stuff, stacked neatly in order. He grabbed a handful at random to get a feel of that heavy weight and said, "These few chests of silver are something that even the brothers under my command selling sugared biscuits can produce. Aren't you looking down on me a tad too much? The chief might not necessarily dare to accept it if I had really brought over 2 million. Shen Zequan had already taken his seat. He said, "Good deals are worth discussing over slowly. The ones who should be anxious at present are Chse Province and Xiaoqi Ye." Lei Changming waved a hand to get his men to drag Kong Ling out of the tent, leaving only his own guards and Shen Zequan behind. From start to end, he remained unwilling to leave his seat. Without taking even half a step closer to Shen Zequan, he said, "You and Xiaoqi Ye broke out of the siege in Chu capital. You could be considered sworn friends who have been through life and death, so why did you fall out with him suddenly and come to beg me instead? Since the chief knows of me, then you must have also known that Shen Wei is my father. Shen Wei let the enemies into Dun province and caused a long-standing grudge to form between me and Libei. Xiaoqi Ye and I may be able to bury the hatchet, but Xiao Jiming may not necessarily be willing to use me." Shen Zequan looked troubled. A man's aspiration is to make a name for himself. Xiaoqi Ye is like a clay Buddha crossing the river who can't even save himself. So how would he have the energy to carve out a path for me? There is some misunderstanding between me and His Excellency Han, but those are all minor issues that do not warrant the death penalty. As long as someone can vouch for me, I'll be able to return to Chu capital to serve the imperial court again." "So that means you still want to be an official, huh?" With both hands on his knees, Lei Changming said, "Brother, to tell you the truth, I want to be an official, too. We used to hang out in the mountains and wilderness back then, and we lived pretty much a carefree life. But when all is said and done, it's not a proper job. Every single one of our movements will come under close scrutiny by the Qidong garrison troops. The chief and I have a common goal." Shen Zequan lifted his little bamboo fan slightly. "Isn't this just perfect? But, I've been deceived by scholars like you until it scares me now." Lei Changming put on a look of dread. "This 2 million of yours are still in Chse province. How are you going to get it to me? And that Han Jin, too. How are you going to help me save him? Make yourself clear today, so I know how things stand. Only then can I truly take you under my protection. The silver is not an issue. The chief can pick a trusted man to go to Chse province and ask Zhou Gui for the money. He knows where the silvers are kept. As long as you can move it, you can take the money away even now. You think he would be willing to give it to me if I ask him?" Lei Changming rubbed his fingers together, as if he still wanted to touch those silvers. "You have Kong Ling in your hands. That's Zhou Gui's trusted aide," Shen Zequan said with a smile. "You have 40,000 soldiers and horses, too. How would Zhou Gui not dare to give it to you? He always wanted to be a good official who loves his people like his children. He won't infuriate you at this critical juncture." Lei Changming looked at Shen Zequan, as if he was getting a measure of him. The tent quietened down. It was all Lei Changming's guards to Shen Zequan's left and right. He touched the teacup but did not drink up. In this long standoff, Lei Changming suddenly laughed and said, "I have ample reserve supplies. I'm not in a hurry to ask for money. It doesn't matter if this 2 million is left there for a few more days. Men, serve tea to young Master Shen. Our top priority is to discuss how to save Han Jin. After all, our meeting of Han Cheng in Chu capital hinges on him." Kong Ling was locked up in a stable. He lay across the weeds and panted heavily, securely bound by coarse hemp ropes. The horse that was resting before him stuck out its hoof and discharged steaming hot dung. That stench made Kong Ling dizzy and he tried to turn his head away to gasp for breath. The band of bandits surrounding him outside the stable roared with laughter. Kong Ling shouted indignantly, "The traitor deceived me. Bah! A gentleman would rather die than be humiliated. Don't even dream of using me to threaten Tse province." Horsewhips jabbed at Kong Ling's face. He was covered with mud and horse dung all over, and being watched by these people all around him caused waves of giddiness to wash over him. He said with shame and hatred, "You people are in cahoots. You. Lei Changming. What good end will you come to by conspiring with such an unrighteous person?" But no matter how Kong Ling cursed and cussed, there were only roars of laughter all around him. He was a well-read and well-educated man. Whether it was Tan Tai Long or Zhou Gui in the past, they all treated him with courtesy. Who would not respectfully address him as Mr. Changfeng everywhere he went? But now, not only was he tied up in a stable, he was even ridiculed and laughed at by these people. He thought again of the snowy night when he fled Dun province. The face of these bandits gradually overlapped with the faces of the Bianchi cavalry, with vague sounds of laughter everywhere. Unable to restrain his emotions for a moment, Kong Ling started to choke with sobs. "Patrol guards!" An officer suddenly walked out from the other end and bellowed, "What are all of you gathering here for? Is this old fart more important than the task of patrolling the camp? If the patrol is delayed, I'll see how all of you will get skinned. Move it, disperse." The surrounding people broke up noisily. Kong Ling shifted over to the edge of the stable and put his head against the railing to let the dripping rain water wash away the filth. He took deep breaths, as if he was breathing in fresh air. His goatee was so dirty that it had become a cake of mud. People went in and out of the tent in the distance. When they lifted the flap of the tent, he could see Lei Changming preparing to host a feast to entertain Shenzhequan. Kong Ling spat and closed his eyes in the rain. An unspecified amount of time later, someone gave Kong Ling's cheeks a light pat. Kong Ling opened his eyes. It was the man he had seen earlier. This person seemed to be in his early 30s. His face was dark, and he had an air of toughness to him. He called out, "Mr. Changfeng." Kong Ling was alarmed. "Don't be afraid. I'm Tan Tai Long's old subordinate. I used to hold a post in the Dun province garrison troops. I've met you once." This man forced a smile, then sighed and said, "Mister, really ought not to have ended up in such a state. Since you are Tan Tai Long's former subordinate, how can you follow a bandit like Lei Changming to stage a rebellion?" Kong Ling said woodenly. Tan Tai Long hated these villains the most when he was still alive. "I was driven into a corner," this man said with a bitter smile. After Dun province was recovered, the imperial court transferred the grains away and used it to fill up Chwexi's deficit. Those of us who survived were so starved that we had to chew tree barks. Although the chief is a bandit, he is fair and generous. It's only by following him can we have enough food to fill our stomachs. We have no other choice. Kong Ling knew he was telling the truth, but words failed him and he could only remain silent. This man helped Kong Ling up and said, "I heard the intent of the chief earlier at the table. He's prepared to use you to negotiate with the prefectural prefect of Tse province. I was worried that you would be too strong-willed and could not bear the humiliation. So, I looked for a chance to step out. Mister, I'll take you away on horseback right now." Kong Ling looked at his sincere expression and said, "If you let me go, Lei Changming will definitely not let you off lightly." This man untied Kong Ling's ropes and quickly said, "I'll send you to Tse province and come back to apologize. I was originally a loyal and righteous soldier under General Tan Tai's command. But now, I've been reduced to a bandit just so I have food to fill my stomach. I can't live with myself deep down. But the chief has been kind to me, so I can't turn my back on him either. Mister, let me help you up the horse." After being helped up the horse, Kong Ling held his arm and choked with sobs, "You are a sensible man. The man got onto the horse too and draped a cloak over Kong Ling. With a shake of the reins, he led Kong Ling around to the main gate of the camp. There were still people patrolling in the rain. Upon seeing him, they all paid their obeisances to him. Without saying a word more, he flashed his token and brought Kong Ling out of the camp. Both men had been galloping for only a moment when they heard the sound of berating behind them. It was soldiers in pursuit of them. "This place is still 1,000 li away from Tse province, mister." The man braved the rain to guide the way. "We'll run without a break all night." Kong Ling swayed from the jolts and bumps. He clutched the reins tightly and followed swiftly after the man. The sound of pursuit behind him never stopped. Branches in the dark night lashed at his face. Kong Ling did not even dare to look back. He endured the pain, determined to hurry back to Tse province and waste no time in letting Zhou Gui in the know. Shen Zequin ate very little. He ignored the singing and dancing in the tent and sat down at the lower area to drink wine. Lei Changming had brought along quite a number of women with his troops in their march forward. Many of them were women he had grabbed in broad daylight back in Duan province. He told one of them to go over and pour wine for Shen Zequin, then urged him with great gusto as he sat on his seat. "Brother Shen, drink up. I bought plenty of excellent wine on this trip. Drink as much as you want tonight." Shen Zequin saw that Lei Changming had drunk until he was flushed in the face. His voice was growing increasingly loud, and he did not hold back as he teased the others. The woman in his arms had been pinched until her neck and shoulders were covered in bruises. Shen Zequin raised the cup slightly and downed the wine without saying a word. Lei Changming said as he ate meat, "You're the son of the Prince of Jianxing, Shen Wei. You never had to endure hardships since you were young, so you don't know how valuable grains are. But you sure have the candor of someone from the martial fraternity by giving this 2 million at the mere drop of a hat. Brother Shen, not that I'm bragging, but I think you did well by throwing in your lot with me now. That Xiao Qiye is just a brat. He could still be of some use in Chu capital, but now that he's returning to Libei, what available path is there for him? He still has 20,000 soldiers with him. The Libei armored cavalry will definitely not take them in. Don't tell me the Prince of Libei can still make him the commander-in-chief of Libei? That Xiao Jiming is the one who's truly formidable." Not letting those women touch his wine jar, Shen Zequin poured himself a cup of wine and said with a smile, "Yeah." Lei Changming gobbled down the pork shoulder and wiped his mouth before he said, "Speaking of these generals, I'm only afraid of Kedong's commander-in-chief, Qi Zuyan. Of the 4 great generals of the realm, she's the only woman. I saw her once when I worked as an armed escort in He province, and what the fuck? She's such a pretty lass, and yet the weapon she wields is an executioner's blade. An executioner's blade. The blade Xiao Qiye uses is also an executioner's blade, isn't it? One straight slash, and it can cleave apart bones and flesh. What it relies on is real physical strength. It's also to do her a favor that I came to Tse province this time. I'll capture Xiao Qiye on her behalf and send him back to Chu capital. This will allow their Kedong to break with Libei without being directly involved. Say, with such a merit like this, will I be able to get a position as a general under her command? I heard that Commander-in-Chief Qi has 5 great generals under her command. Each of them is skilled in combat, and they are all men she single-handedly trained all these years over at the Kedong garrison troops." Shen Zequin said. "If you really go over, you'll naturally come up on top and be the big brother of them all." Lei Changming boomed with laughter. He scooped up the woman in his arms and kissed her haphazardly in spite of her cries. He wiped his greasy hands clean on those silk fabrics and said, "It is from the mountains that I made my mark. I've been running all over all these years, and I've also fought some battles. Mention this Lei Changming's name in Zongbo, and who doesn't know that I can fight? Brother Shen, you know Lu Guangbai of the Bianjun Commandery, right? Their Lu clan is poor as hell. He gives one the impression of being an unyielding man, and it's all by virtue of his vigor that he could keep up the desperate fights at Bianjun. He doesn't have any other capabilities. In my opinion, Lu Guangbai is the most incompetent one among the four great generals. He's called, what do you call it, the fire beacon amidst blowing sand or something. Bianjun lights up the beacon towers every year, so what's so special about this? Might as well vacate his post and let me take over instead. I guarantee I'll be way better than him. Seeing that he was drunk and starting to boast, Shen Zequan lowered his fingers and gently righted the chopsticks on the table. He said with a smile, he's indeed not very impressive. Men like Commander Zhou are the real heroes. Lei Changming poured wine into his mouth, which leaked over half of his body. Too late to wipe it, he tossed the wine cup away and said to Shen Zequan, he who took down the enemy's heads from 1,000 li away, and he who struck fear in enemies' hearts with one arrow. He was all the storyteller in the tea houses in He province spoke of in the past. They said he killed his wife to protect the city, and consequently, his hair rapidly turned white. Oh man, one can't help but shed tears to hear his story. A pity there was no avoiding the disillusionment of a hero, and he still ended up retiring early. Otherwise, he and I might even get to be sworn brothers. It was pandemonium in the tent, as if a host of demons were dancing and running wild within. Those so-called guards and deputy generals, all showed their true colors as they stood or lay down and pulled the women over to drink and make merry. Such an army like this has no military discipline to speak of. They were all the same as Lei Changming, bandits who depended on weapons at the very beginning to plunder and loot. Sitting among them, Shen Zequan had a subtle sense that something was off. Lei Changming should not be such a man. If he was this kind of short-sighted man who enjoyed life while he could, then how could he have stood out from amongst the crowd of bandits? What this man had on display was completely different from what Shen Zequan had heard of him from rumors. Lei Changming got up to chase after a woman and pulled her into his arms to fondle and grope. He drank the wine, sang some obscure farm song from Deng province, and danced and gesticulated with merriment like a bull that had rashly crashed its way onto the wiki board. He enjoyed himself to his heart's content and drank himself silly. But unexpectedly, he smacked his forehead and said as he pointed at Shen Zequan, "Your mother is a dancer from Duan province, right? Brother Shen, quick, get up and dance for us." End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 107, Odd. The sound of rain outside the tent grew softer while the tent flap was opened, dissipating the heat within. Lecherous howls of the drunk men rang out from the camp in the deep of the night, while soldiers with arms around one another played finger-guessing games. Lei Changming was so hot that he undid his clothes and laid his chest bare. His chest was tanned, with plenty of scars and a tuft of chest hair that grew unchecked like weed beneath his clothes. Drunkenly embracing the woman in his arms, he sang and danced, and even called out to Shen Zequan, "Brother Shen, get up." At this point in time, the flap moved, and several servile and submissive soldiers entered to place down the food. Shen Zequan partially opened a little bamboo fan and stood up. The candle flames in the tent were not bright enough. He raised his hand to block the side of his face at an angle with the fan, then looked at Lei Changming and said softly, "What dance does the chief want to see?" Lei Changming found that Shen Zequan was really good looking. He was not only astonishingly beautiful when seen this way but also so gorgeous that he overshadowed and outshone everything else in the room. Lei Changming drank the wine to embolden himself, then he shoved the woman away and pounced on Shen Zequan. He did not expect to trip over the wine jar at his feet and cut a sorry sight as he fell at Shen Zequan's feet. It was in this way that Lei Changming sprawled on the ground and gasped for breath that reeked of wine. He wanted to grab the hem of Shen Zequan's robe but he grasped at nothing but empty air. He let loose a chuckle and began to laugh. "Smell nice," Lei Changming stretched his neck out and sniffed the air hard. "You really smell so good. Brother Shen, come on. Help me up." I'll dance with you. Dance whatever you like. Damn, so this is what others mean by the fragrance of a beauty. Shenzhequan looked askance at him and watched him crawl on the ground like a pot-bellied hairy spider as he chased after the corner of Shenzhequan's plain, white clothes. For some reason, Shenzhequan felt an extremely sudden wave of abhorrence wash over him in this absurdly comical moment. His hatred, which had broken free of its dam, was just like magma. It was so scalding that his fingers, which had been gripping the fan, went white. His teacher told him to leave Chu capital and return to Zhongbo. Yet the Duan province which he once longed for, was successively handed over to men like these. Lei Changming and the others were just like the personification of malice. They were the evil ghosts who had taken over the state. Shenzhequan lightly rested his bamboo fan at the side of his lips. He let out a smile and slowly took a step back. In the din under the flickers of ghostly shadows, he bent over slightly and said, "Come over." Lei Changming originally wanted to climb to his feet, but now, it seemed like he could not care less as he crawled on his hands and knees towards Shenzhequan. In his trance, he felt that what he was seeing was not a human being, but an untouchable, nocturnal demon. He salivated and swallowed his saliva before he realized that Shenzhequan had a tiny white jade stone on his right ear. Someone had carefully polished that jade into a perfect sphere, and it looked exceedingly gentle on Shenzhequan's earlobe under the glow of the light. It was the only accessory he had on his entire body, other than his bamboo fan. "Brother Shen," Lei Changming said with urgency. "Quick, help me up." The soldiers set down the plates with their heads lowered. Then, with trays in hands, they stepped aside as if they were preparing to leave. The shouts and laughter of the men and women were like the drizzle which, in Lei Changming's ears, became another seemingly elusive world. He seemed to be a drooling jackal that had been chained and pulled towards Shenzhequan by an invisible force. The tent was all upside down. Lei Changming felt a little dizzy from drinking too much. "Brother Shen." Lei Changming chanted as though he was paying a religious homage. "Shenzhequan. Beautiful brother Shen." Lei Changming haphazardly tore away at his own opened clothes, feeling as if the scars on his chest were burning. He had never felt like this before. His eyes were clearly opened, yet he seemed to be asleep. He was still crawling. It seemed as if he had finally gotten near to Shenzhequan's feet. He tilted his head up and let out a vague laugh as he tried to tug at the hem of Shenzhequan's white-as-clouds robe. "What a temptress!" Lei Changming reached out a shivering hand and murmured ingratiatingly at Shenzhequan, "How ravishing can you be?" Lei Changming killed people like flies in Zhongbo, grabbed countless women, and coerced many children. He was the kind of person who seemed to love beautiful and exquisite people by nature. He wanted to tear all those who were delicate, untainted, and even ignorant into bloodied, tainted mess. He committed much evil, and he even thought that ghosts would all take a detour on seeing him. He did not fear karma at all. Many had done wrong, and yet they were still able to sleep well with dreams of limitless wealth and glory. They would not think back of all those bodies they had trampled into pieces. All those were like the clouds people they once could not touch. Lei Changming's vision was somewhat blurred. Shenzhequan's face gradually became more and more vague. On the contrary, that round little jade stone increased in clarity until it turned into a little jade stone that he seemed to have seen before. Little buddy. Lei Changming once tricked a child in this way. He pinned down the child's limbs and violated the other in the pitch-dark tent. He still remembered drinking that day too. The scars on his chest were burning like this, too. Those hands and legs he was gripping were so thin and slender that Lei Changming even had the thought to break them in his stimulated state. He bent and twisted them hard and watched as that rossiness turned pale until it eventually turned into a mess of rotten flesh. Panting, Lei Changming pounced at Shenzhequan several times and attempted to grab the ladder but failed. He shook his head hard. The cacophony of human voices was giving him a splitting headache. He hastily crawled forward and bumped into a small table at the side. Wine and dishes splattered all over his half-naked body. He shouted, "Shen!" The tent reflected in Lei Changming's eyes suddenly righted itself. Blood splashed over his cheeks. He opened his mouth wide. His body was still frozen in place, but his head had already gone rolling down. It knocked against the wooden leg of the small table, its expression so vivid that it was nauseating. The laughter in the tent came to an abrupt stop. The candle flames were still flickering. Everyone stopped in the middle of whatever they were doing and looked like they had all gone stiff and were already dead. Wind blew through the opened flap, revealing the drizzling scene outside where night was like the creeping silence and extinguished the last of the candle flame. Shen Zequin placed Yang Shan Shui, which he had pulled out from under the cushion, and wiped it in silence. Removed from the blade, the fresh blood left behind a long red scar on the cotton cloth. He wiped it very slowly. No one saw it when he had drawn the blade, so they could only appreciate the sight of him wiping it patiently. Shen Zequin inexplicably started to laugh. This laughter seemed to be the most unbridled one he had ever let loose these days. He kept the blade, held up his folding fan again, and stepped on Lei Changming's head to correct its position. Dancing, huh? Shen Zequin lowered his eyes and said to Lei Changming. Are you even worthy? Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The soldier who was about to pee had only just let his pants down when someone sliced his throat and dragged him into the undergrowth. Small groups of Lei Changming's soldiers gathered at the foot of the watchtower to play dice, unaware that their own men were silently dwindling in numbers. Tell the mess cook to save some meat and serve a plate to us. This rain falls like diarrhea. It's so unbearable. It'll be too hard to bear if we don't drink a little wine. The squad commander tossed the dice and lifted his head to yell at the man behind, You go. Yes, you. You're getting in the way by standing here. With that, he lowered his head again. They put their heads together and chewed on the meat jerky as they tossed the remaining bit of copper coins they had left in the waistband of their pants into the bed, all of them hoping to get lucky. Ain't this hand way too cursed? One of them slapped his palm as if he was swatting at bad luck, then wiped and rubbed it on his thigh. He said, I'm not playing anymore. No. Another one tugged at him. That'd be no fun. We're entering the city tomorrow. Don't you need money to visit the brothels and get on the pleasure boats? Give it another go. You might get lucky. Bah. The one who wanted to leave spat at the face of the other party. With our chief's reputation, do we still need money to enter the city and visit the brothels? Slutty whores don't deserve to ask for money. We are already doing them favors by patronizing them. Who knows if they will spread some filthy diseases to me? I'm not playing. Those in the tent seem to me like they are going to stay up all night. With the state they have drunk themselves into, I doubt they can even fight a battle tomorrow. I'm going to sleep for a few hours. As soon as this person turned around, he bumped into someone else. He hit his head on the armor and heard a thwack. The collision dazed him, and he blanked out for a moment before he started to push and shove at the other person. He cussed, "The fuck you blocking?" There was a muffled sound of stabbing. This person did not even have the chance to speak when he fell forward with a blank stare. The forward trajectory of the body was blocked by the other party, and it fell back towards the crowd, who were still shaking the dice, and crashed into them. The dice promptly tumbled to the ground. The men were already in a bad temper from having to take the night watch, so they grabbed the man's collar, wanting to hit him. But when they turned him over for a look, they saw those eyeballs of his bulging out in a glare. The man was already dead. The Imperial Army swiftly drew their blades. Without giving these bandits the chance to react, they charged forth and cut them down. Blood splattered onto their armors. Tantai who wiped his face and shouted, "Kill!" Without the tip-off from the patrol squad, the soldiers that had already gone to rest in the camping grounds were caught off guard by the Imperial Army. Leading his men, Tantai who charged into the tent and covered their mouths and noses, and stabbed them one at a time, leaving behind a mattress of crimson red. The surviving bandits ran out of the military camp in panic. They did not receive any orders, and so they ran around flustered in the rainy night like headless chickens. The campsite was already completely surrounded by the imperial army. The moment those wily old foxes who had hung out in the martial fraternity all year round saw those drawn blades, they instantly surrendered without a fight and crowded together as they waded across the muddy waters to kneel and beg for mercy. Xiao Qi spurred his horse over. Lang Tao Shuijin trod its hooves before the crowd of people. The gerfalcon descended from the sky and landed on Xiao Qi's shoulder, bringing along a gust of bitterly cold wind as it closed up its wings. Xiao Qi's well-built body was like an ink-black cloud in the rainy night that blotted out the light. His back was to that faint and distant candle light in the tent, while his gaze was like a blade so cutting that those prying glances vanished in a fluster. Tantai who was doing a head count. Xiao Qi turned his horse around. His shoulders were already drenched. Meng tilted its head to look askance at that deadly still military tent, as if it knew that there were bloody fleshes inside for it to eat. Shenzequan was not in the tent. He was standing outside, carrying an umbrella with his head lowered to look at his own blood-stained boots. Xiao Qi leaned down, and Meng hopped onto Shenzequan's shoulder. Shenzequan raised his head and met Xiao Qi's eyes. "Young master," Xiao Qi lifted a finger and lightly scraped it across the tip of Shenzequan's nose. "Why are you standing here alone in the rain?" Shenzequan spread his little bamboo fan open to show it to Xiao Qi. He said a little sulkily, "My fan is dirty." There were a few splotches of blood splattered on the feebly opened fan, like red plums spilling over the words. It was unpleasant, no matter how one looked at it. What's more, these words were written by Xiao Qi himself. Ever since this fan was gifted to him, it never left Shenzequan's side, just like that blue handkerchief. The way those drops are splashed is pretty unique. Xiao Qi's gaze never left Shenzequan's face. He continued, "Give this fan to me. I'll make you another one." Shenzequan inserted the fan at a slanting angle into Xiao Qi's back collar and nodded his head. Xiao Qi smiled at him and asked, "Was the feast delicious?" Shenzequan shook the umbrella open to shield both of them and answered, "Passable. But it's too noisy." Xiao Qi dismounted and took over the umbrella. He only covered Shenzequan, leaving half of his own body exposed outside in the rain. He lifted the tent flap with one hand and surveyed the interior. After a period of time, he said, "There's something odd with this camp." Shenzequan raised his hand to cover up Meng, who wanted to fly inside, and said, "I don't think he's the same Lei Changming who is rumored to be able to subdue the two prefectures of Duan Province and Dun Province." Both of them were still talking when they suddenly saw Tantaihu hurrying over to them. The blood on Tantaihu's body had yet to be wiped away. He did not look too good as he paid his respects to both of them and said, "Master, their numbers don't tally at all. I asked some squad commanders, and they couldn't even say how many men they have under them. It was only after I pressed them further that I learned that they are all bandits Lei Changming had just taken in. They are not men he brought along from Mount Luo." End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 108, Silver. No wonder everything went too smoothly tonight. In that instant, Shenzequan came to an understanding about many matters. He abruptly looked back and was about to blurt it out when he held back and looked at Xiao Qi. "Lao Hu." Xiao Qi said swiftly. "Separate out 2,000 men to guard this place. Ding Tao, get on your horse and go around to the northeast of Tse Province. Tell the men lying in ambush to head south immediately and block the road on the southern side of Tse Province. The rest of you, follow me back to the city." This strategy of luring the enemy away from his base had been planned for a long time already. Very likely, it was already in the works before Lei Changming left Mount Luo. Those reports that were sent back to Tse Province from Mount Luo were all vague rumors, the most frequent of which was their sightings of the earthen stoves built by the bandits in Mount Luo. This turned the precise number of Lei Changming's men into a matter of opinion. The mix of truth and falsehood, reality and pretenses, lured them into conveniently guessing that the 40,000 men were just a front. And so, they assumed that the other party would not dare to launch a surprise attack without careful consideration. No one would have expected the other party to harbor no intent to fight with Xiao Qiye head-on at all. It's impossible for Kong Ling not to recognize Lei Changming. Shen Zequan got on the horse using Xiao Qiye's arms as support. I suspect at this point that all the rumors about Lei Changming are false. Lei Changming is just this person at the front. Xiao Qiye tossed the umbrella to Tan Taihu and covered Shen Zequan up with his cloak. Then he put up his arms and turned his horse around. He said, "It's useless even if he holds Kong Ling under duress. Most likely, he wants to use Kong Ling in order to open the Tse province's gate. By doing this, he will be the one inside, and we will be the ones outside." Xiao Qiye was able to fight against Lei Changming's 40,000 men all because he still had Tse province's granary behind him to back him up. This allowed him to act promptly and swiftly cut down this random batch of soldiers who were already weary from being on the move. To think that the other side knew their own shortcomings and did not fight with Xiao Qiye head-on. Instead, they drew on their foe's strength to make up for their own deficiencies and turned Xiao Qiye into a stray dog in the wilderness. They reversed everyone's initial position, causing the imperial army to be stranded outside with their access to the military provisions cut off. "He has always been in the shadows all this while," Shen Zequan said in the wind with his cloak around him. "He knows all our moves like the back of his hand. Tse province is not our territory after all. He must have an informer in the city. Yet we know nothing about him." Xiao Qiye suddenly laughed when he spoke to this point. He tightened his arms around him and said, "This man sure is something." By now, the rain had subsided. Only the night breeze still carried with it a few threads of rain. Horses' hooves trampled upon mud as they galloped noisily towards Tse province. However, no matter how fast they were, they could not catch up with the speed of the other party. Kong Ling had already arrived in Tse province. Kong Ling had been a weak scholar ever since he came out of obscurity to take up an official post. Furthermore, he was almost 45 now. His bones almost fell apart on impact when he reined in his horse, and he could hardly catch his breath as he slid off the horse to the ground. He let the man hold him up in support, then cupped his hands at the man and said, It's all thanks to you this time. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Mister, you are too courteous." Even though this man looked competent and tough, he had been looking after Kong Ling the entire journey. "I'm afraid the pursuing soldiers behind us will be here in a flash. Mister, drink some water, and we'll move on. Once we reach the foot of the city gate, get them to open the gate as soon as possible." They rested midway in an inn that still had lanterns hung up. Although it was not to stay overnight but to allow Kong Ling, whose legs were still trembling, to drink some hot tea and take a break. The sides of Kong Ling's legs were badly scraped, making it inconvenient for him to sit down. He held the bowl in the hall to gulp down. As they were resting, they suddenly heard the sound of horse hooves outside. Although the man did not stand up, his hand quietly fell upon the blade at the side of his waist. He turned slightly sideways to hide his face in the darkness and looked at the door. A group of travel-worn travelers strode through the door, led by two men of similar stature. The strange thing was that this group of people were all tall and similarly well built. Even though they were wearing the cotton clothes of commoners, they still had an imposing aura around them. One of them removed his bamboo hat to reveal a face with stubble and a lock of hair hanging down over his forehead. He swept a seemingly nonchalant glance at the two men in the hall who were still drinking tea. With a smile on his face, he tossed out a bag of money and said to the innkeeper, "Staying for the night. 1 deluxe room and 3 wide beds. Is there any cooked food left?" Give us some steamed bun and braised beef with Sheju wine. We have money, so why do you have to be so frugal? The other one removed his bamboo hat too. He was powerfully built. He opened the bag of money and said to the innkeeper, "Deluxe rooms for all." A muffled cough rang out from the center that was surrounded by the men. An old man who was wearing a cloak all this while said in a lowered voice, "It's not easy for us to save up this money. We still have not reached the place. Let's endure it for one more day. Tianya. Let everyone rest after eating their fill. Stop fooling around." Xiao Tianya blew at the hair that had fallen and took the bag of money back from Fei Sheng's hands. He tossed it into the innkeeper's hands and said, "Do as I said earlier. Serve the wine and dishes as soon as possible, don't drag your feet. Shifu, you have braved the elements with us the entire journey, so how can we still let you sleep on the wide beds with us now that we are here? You are our elder. This is something we should do as a show of respect to you. Furthermore, if master were to know that I let you sleep with us on the wide beds, he will definitely not be happy. Please take a good rest and consider it as doting on us." Not to be outdone, after Qiao Tianya was done talking, Fei Sheng immediately said, "I was too insensible earlier. Shifu, let me help you up to rest. Once the dishes are served in a while, I'll bring them up to you." Ji Gang's physical strength was not as good as it was before, so he did not turn Fei Sheng down and let Fei Sheng guide him upstairs. Although Kong Ling did not know who these travelers were, he could sense that they were not ones to be messed with. He was worried that they were also bandits, as they were all armed with blades. He thought about it, then put down his teacup and said to the man beside him, "Warrior, I've had enough rest. Let's continue on our way." But before they could move, those travelers had already taken their seats. The inn was not big and all the 4 square tables were fully occupied. No one knew if it was intentional or a coincidence, but Qiao Tianya sat down right beside Kong Ling and cut off Kong Ling's access path. "Yo." Qiao Tianya poured tea for himself and said offhandedly, "Are both of you in a hurry to get on with your journey, too?" The man curbed his air of toughness, and tried to present himself as an ordinary farmer. He rubbed his hands and smiled shyly, as if he was not accustomed to dealing with unfamiliar inquiries like this, and said, I'm hurrying along with my eldest brother." Qiao Tianya did not think to make way on his own initiative. He drank the tea and narrowed his eyes slightly, as if he was scalded, and said, "Where are you going? Perhaps we are going the same way. It hasn't been easy for us on this journey. Didn't some marquis in Chu capital rebel? It's all men from the local authorities on our way here. They are all so good at fishing for bribes that we are forced to take a detour. Sorry about this chatty mouth of mine. I've gotten carried away. Where are you going?" Kong Ling could neither sit nor walk out. His inner thighs burned with pain. Maintaining his composure, his goatee quivered a little as he replied in Deng province dialect, "Malayan town." "You know of Malayan town, buddy? The town near Chse province, huh? Then we are going the same way. We're heading for the city of Chse province ahead of Malayan town." As Qiao Tianya spoke, he put up an arm on the table. He stared at the man and said, "Buddy, you look familiar." At this point, the man had already sensed that he was being watched. He glanced at the figures of these travelers in his peripheral vision. His mind was working overtime and he more or less could make some guesses about them. However, he thought that these travelers were Jin Yue disguising themselves to hunt down and capture Xiao Qiye and Shen Zequan, and that they were only suspicious because of the blade he was carrying. So, he relaxed to appear more simple and honest as he answered, "I'm a farmer from Deng province." As he spoke, he fumbled around his bosom and fished out a crumpled travel permit and a hand-copied household register. There was the official seal of Deng province on it. He opened it to show Qiao Tianya and said, "We are going to Malayan town to visit our elder sister who has married over. She has just given birth, and they are hosting a banquet." "Oh, A joyous event. Qiao Tianya was even happier than the man was. He said, I love kids the most. And when it comes to drinking wine, I love the ones at baby's 1-month celebrations the best. Seeing as Qiao Tianya was still prattling on, Kong Ling forced a smile and said, the rain has stopped. In that case, we shall continue on our way. If not, it'll cost us money to stay here overnight. On the other side, Fei Sheng had already come down the stairs. He did not notice it at first, but seeing as Qiao Tianya had never moved away after so long, he started to size up the man, too. He suddenly moved over and sat down behind the man, boxing him in from the front and back together with Qiao Tianya. What are you chatting about? Fei Sheng picked up a steamed bun from the plate the waiter brought over and took a big bite out of it. He looked at them. Look at how well you're hitting it off. Chatting about sons. Qiao Tianya moved the chopsticks over and said warmly, have both of you eaten? You didn't have the time to yet, have you? Then, come on, let's have our meals together. Waiter. Bring over 2 more pairs of chopsticks. Kong Ling also sensed something off by now. He wanted to sit down and interact with them, but the teacup suddenly overturned, splashing tea over the man. The man hurriedly got up. As he hastily wiped himself with his sleeves, he said to Fei Sheng before him, sorry. Taking advantage of the opportunity, he squeezed past Fei Sheng and took 2 steps towards the waiter, pleading, buddy, lend me a towel to wipe myself with. Fei Sheng had already stood up. He exchanged glances with Qiao Tianya. Their astute brothers, who had already taken their seats, all grasped their blades. Fei Sheng strode out from behind and bumped into the man's right back shoulder fast and hard. He pulled the man up by his clothes and said, you did it on purpose, didn't you? The impact of the bump sent the man knocking into the table and chairs right in front of him. He almost lost his balance. His temples were drenched in sweat, and he was so anxious that he did not know where to put his hands. He repeatedly bowed to Fei Sheng in a conciliatory manner and apologized. Sorry. This man did not know martial arts. Fei Sheng cast another glance at Qiao Tianya and shoved the man again. He yelled, just my fucking luck. The man's entire body fell backward, tilting the table and chairs over as he crashed into them. He cut a sorry sight as the back of his head struck the corner of the table. Kong Ling exclaimed in surprise and said anxiously, why did you lash out at him? He's bleeding. Only then did Qiao Tianya feign to stop Fei Sheng. He said to Fei Sheng, forget it. We are all travelers. Why put others in a spot? Fei Sheng let loose a torrent of expletives and acted all like someone important as Qiao Tianya persuaded him to go back. He even glared at that man several times. Their party started digging into their food. Fei Sheng stood up again and said, I got so pissed that I forgot I still have to deliver the meal to Shifu. Kong Ling had already helped support the man to the entrance. The man touched the back of his head and came away with an entire handful of blood. He glanced back at Qiao Tianya and the rest as if he was fearful of them, then hastily shrank his head back, looking all timid and afraid of incurring trouble. He untied the horse and walked off into the night with Kong Ling. Only then did Fei Sheng drop his act and asked, why are you interrogating them? We are on the wanted list too. It's better to lie low now that we are about to reach the threshold of Tse province, don't stir up trouble. I always feel like this man. Qiao Tianya drank 2 mouthfuls of Sheju and thought about it for a moment with a frown. Is there really no reaction from him when you bumped into him? Nope. Fei Sheng took 2 bites of the beef. The person himself can put on an act, but once his body is accustomed to reacting swiftly, then it'll be very difficult to control himself from parrying a sudden blow. This man is pretty weird, but he indeed doesn't seem to be a martial artist. What if he can indeed control himself? Qiao Tianya suddenly asked. Then he's a formidable one. Fei Sheng gestured with his chopsticks in the air. he will have to be of the same caliber as Jigang Shifu. Think about his lordship. With a body like his lordship, there will be no way to hide it. His naturally endowed physique has blessed him with explosive strength. You have to be careful even when you approach him while he's asleep, or you risk your own life. What's more, touching him. This endurance can only be built up through years and years of practice. This man doesn't seem to be that old. So, I doubt that he can. Qiao Tianya ate the dishes and did not ask further. When they had eaten and drunk their fill, the innkeeper worked out the bill for Qiao Tianya. As he returned the silver, Fei Sheng had nothing better to do, so he felt it up and realized something unusual. The weight and relative purity of the silver were subtly different from the silvers they had brought out of Chu capital, the ones that had been minted and directly issued by the Ministry of Revenue. Although Fei Sheng was usually a competitive man who loved to fawn on others, his special skill was unrivaled. With his suspicions aroused by these subtle differences, he held the silver high and scrutinized it for a moment before he asked Qiao Tianya, "Zongbo has had dealings with Juexi all these years. Most of the silvers in circulation come from Juexi, right?" "So, it is said." Qiao Tianya propped himself on the counter and turned his head aside to look at those silvers. This kind of new silvers is rarely seen. The businesses they do are all shady scalping deals, and the general public typically won't dare to use silvers from Juexi directly. Everyone will exchange them into copper coins, or use silvers issued out from other areas. But with the state treasury became empty during the reign of Emperor Xiand, there have been very few newly minted silvers from the various areas. The only one who can still have very new silvers is the Shi. The silver warehouses of the Shi clan, who own silver mines and mine silver. If these money did not come from Shenzequan's hands, then it came from the people who schemed to empty out the Shi clan silver warehouses. Regardless of whether it was the former or the latter, both were important to them. Qiao Tianya straightened up in a flash and said, "Leave half of the men in this place to keep night watch and take care of Shifu. The rest of you, come with me. 10th son of the Fei, you were fucking wrong about him." Chase. End chapter.